Hello and welcome back. One of the things we often want to do as programmers is to produce some output that adheres to a particular format. And Python strings provide a method called format that's going to greatly ease the ability with which we can produce formatted strings. As we already know, we can combine a series of strings together using string concatenation with a plus operator that's defined to work on strings. But this is cumbersome for producing formatting output because there are certain things we can't control, such as the number of digits that appear after the decimal point in a floating point value. So format is going to make a lot of this a great deal easier for us, and it's best to work with this through an example. So format is a method defined for any string object, so obviously we're going to need to start by creating a string. And format applies a particular formatting to a string that contains information that describes what that format will be. Okay, so let's create a string template that contains name, colon, and then a weird curly brace thing that we haven't seen before. But they're just characters of the string, but they're characters of the string that are going to carry particular meaning to the format method. Okay. And here, what this is really saying is the 0th argument, the first argument to be passed into the format method, is going to replace the curly brace 0. Okay? And then age, we're going to use another one of these curly brace things and say this is going to be the next argument that's passed in, and we're going to show it, it's going to be a floating point value, and we're going to show it with 4 decimal places of accuracy. Okay, so there's our string, and we can look at our string template, and it's just the sequence of characters that you might expect. Nothing particularly surprising has happened yet. Okay, so we're going to go through our string reference. Remember, template is just a name on the dictionary. It refers to an object on the computer's memory that is a string, and it has, well, as all strings do, a method called format defined for it. And we're going to pass in 2 arguments to format, and the first argument is going to go into this placeholder in the string, and the second argument is going to go into this placeholder in the string. That's what this number is denoting. It's saying the 0th argument goes here, and the next argument goes into this slot. Okay, so the data we'll pass in is Andy and a floating point value, because the second curly brace here is expecting a floating point value. So let's do 87 point and some long series of floating point values, or long series of digits within the floating point value. Okay, so what format is going to do is it's going to apply the formatting that's defined in the template with respect to the data that we're passing into the formatting method. And it's going to return a string. And the string that it returns is the string, well, that's produced by applying exactly the formatting we asked for to that particular set of data. So we see that, for instance, the age is now 87.7263 because we asked for 4 decimal places of accuracy. So this gives us an ability to produce something that's a bit like form letters. Let's look at another quick example. In this example, I defined a string beforehand. I created template that refers to a string, but you can do it using a string literal too. So I could say, let's do it in a different order. Height, and I'll say, actually I'm going to keep this short, and age, and let's say, and we'll keep it really brief. Okay, so there's my placeholder for the string object, and we're going to apply formatting to this, and we'll pass in this case 2 strings because we haven't said anything about the formatting that's required here. When certain data is absent, as we'll see on the next slide, it's just going to take the values for these placeholders one by one. So we can say not much, and age too much. Okay, and This should work fine. It produces a string that is height, not much, age, too much. So these values have each gone into the placeholders that are ready for the formatting function. Hopefully you're starting to get the idea of it. Okay, so these replacement fields, the things that we're putting in braces, there's a syntax associated with them, the stuff that can go into them to define how to format the incoming data. We're only going to do some of the cases, but the base cases that we're interested in look of the format like this. Curly brace, they all have the curly brace to open and the curly brace to close. Then optionally there can be an argument number, that's saying the 0th argument, argument index 1, so this is the 0th argument that we're passing into the format, this is argument index 1 that we're passing in, and so on. There can be many of these, okay? If you don't pass them in, it just goes left to right, which is why not much went in there and too much went in there. Okay, so we can have n, that's that example there, or we can have n colon w. And what n colon w does, where w is a width, it's the minimum number of characters that will be produced. So let's say we do something like this. Let's do xxxxx, and then 0 colon 10. No, let's do a smaller value. You can experiment with this yourselves. Okay, xxxx, right, and dot. So there's a simple string with a replacement field in the middle of it, dot format y. Okay, so I'm passing in just a single character y that's going to be inserted into that replacement field, but it's going to be inserted in a field that is 5 characters wide. And what we'll see is we get this output here. So we've got the xxxxxx, which we expected, then y is inserted, but the minimum width of the field is 5 characters long in total. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then we're back into the xxxxx. Okay? So we've covered this version, the minimum width of the field. We can also do the one that I showed you for age here, where it was receiving a floating point value and putting out a certain number of digits of accuracy. So in that version, we can do it in a variety of ways. We can say which number argument it is, then the colon to say there's more information coming for the formatting. Point, P, is the number of digits after the decimal point, and F just signifies, hey, this is a floating point value. And various combinations of this are allowed. So it's important you experiment with this, and you will be experimenting with it a lot in the all upcoming labs and your assignments. Okay, so a couple of simple examples. Let's have a look at this example up here. I've deleted some of the information from this one, which is information you will look at in a minute. But we've got a string, first name that is Lucy, last name that is Languid. We're also calculating a floating point value, third, that is 1 divided by 3, so you can imagine that's going to be 0.333333333 repeater. So we can call the print statement, passing in as the argument to the print statement, all of this. So this is going to get evaluated, it's going to return a string, and that string is then passed into the print statement. But what it's going to do is, well, first name is going to go in as the 0th, into the 0th replacement field, and last name is going to go into the replacement field index 1. So when we run this, we'll see the first print statement produces Lucy Languid. First name, Lucy, goes here, then there's a space, then last name goes in here. The next piece of output, again, is exactly the same, and you'll see it's exactly the same despite the fact that we didn't explicitly identify the number of the arguments into the format method. So by default, it just goes left to right. And then the last one, 1/3 to 4 dec places, decimal places, is, so we're saying take the 0th argument, there is only one anyway, so that goes in, to here, and it's shown to 4 decimal places. The floating point value is shown to 4 decimal places, which is exactly what we see here. There's a couple of things that are coming up for later use in the course, like this is showing importing different packages, we'll hit that soon, and it's also showing a for loop. So I've just pulled that little section out, but quite quickly you can see that we can produce nice tables of data using a loop. Don't worry about this too much, it's coming up later. But this allows us to iterate around a particular statement or series of statements. And what it's doing is it's printing the 0th argument, that's I, in a field that is 3 characters wide. It's then taking the argument index 1, which is the square root of whatever the number is. It's printing it in a field that's 10 characters wide, and it's showing it to 5 decimal places. So let's run that quickly, and you'll see there's the table that we produced. Okay. Hopefully you're getting the hang of that. It's important that you work and experiment with the format method. It's going to be one you'll be using a lot through the course. That's it for week 2's videos. Thank you very much.